Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's March 14th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it looks like just more of the same today. What happens is prices will rally, it goes sideways or rally, and then before the end of the day, they sell it off. And a few times it's rallied late into the day, but I mean, you can see we've had one really up day in the last what, 8 trading days, which is not good. I mean, we're really just kind of chopping sideways. This support down here still holding. My guess is we're going to test these lows before it's over. One of these two, or we're at least going to test this low again. I'd be shocked if we don't at least test this low and probably test this one. So that's what it's looking like to me. Prices are really uh, volatile, and I mean, you can get swings really strong in both directions. We could get another big rally day before we get down there too. So you can't rule that out. That's the one thing about bear markets. You get these huge rallies. I mean, you can see when we had this big sell-off here, we had a huge rally. And in here, I mean, this doesn't look like much, but for a couple of days, especially this one here, that's a really big rally. And then we just went sideways till we dropped off again. And then there was another big day in there. So they can be big, really strong, violent rallies, but generally they just lead to more selling. So uh, my guess is we could see some more positive days on the way down, but I think we're headed down here. That's what the chart's hinting at. Whether or not, we'll just have to see what happens, but that's what the chart's hinting at to me. So I just thought I'd put this up there and show you that we got these two targets down here. And I mean, we were in this little trading range, and then if you make the measured move, it's down here, and we're still inside that. So we could bounce, and I mean, we could find strong support there and eventually rally. But again, I'll be shocked if we don't test at least this low and probably both of them. That's just the way it's looking. There's just so much negative. There's just too much negativity. I mean, I'll be shocked if we don't go into a serious recession here with the economy the way it is and inflation and possibility with this war going on in Europe, Eastern Europe, with Russia invading Ukraine, and uh, there's just too much going on. There's too much negative news out there for a really continued rally, in my opinion. So things could change overnight. You never know. So always be on your toes. Nothing's 100% with trading. I'm just telling you what my experience in this chart are hinting at. So we'll see what happens. But let's flip over to the intraday chart and go through the. Okay, here's our 2000 tick intraday chart. And again, I think I talked about it last week. Some people have asked me about going to a larger chart. If you want to go to a larger chart, give it a shot. I don't see anything wrong with it. I'm sticking to the 2000 tick chart. I might put up a 2000 tick chart and start watching it, and because the volatility does not seem to be going away. I mean, usually that's the reason I got to where I didn't like to flip-flop back and forth, because the volatility would be up for a week or two and then it would go back, and it just wasn't worth trying to keep up with it every couple of weeks. But now that it's getting extended, it's probably something to consider. Uh, we may not see lower volatility for a long, long time. Maybe never. I mean, I don't know. You never say never in this in trading in these markets. So eventually we'll be wishing we had some of this volatility back when it's super slow, and it'll happen. I just don't know when. It might be a long time with all the stuff that's going on. Um, so I may open up a 3,000 tick chart or so and play around with it, just see what's closest to 5 minutes again, because that's how we originally got to the 2,000 tick chart, because we were trying to find bars that lasted about 5 minutes, and it probably would uh, ease these, uh, smooth this out some. I like to see the price action, and I really don't like flipping charts too much, but just something to think about. I'm like I said, I may open one and just run it side by side and watch it for a little bit. I may decide I want to flip over too, but for now I'm continuing with 2,000. But if you want to go to a little higher chart, there's no reason that you can't. So just keep that in mind. But there's the big picture. You can see we were looking for 2 legs down, and we got a little more than that. You could also look for the measured move based on the width of the original range here. And you can see that's this dash line here. And that's where we got to and it looked like we were going to bounce, but prices just continued on down. This trend, this cayenne colored trend channel, just continued to hold. And actually, you really didn't even get it confirmed till way down here. But it continues to hold. We get a break, a new low, and we try to rally out of there. And we did rally out a little bit, but it's mostly, I'd call that mostly sideways to slightly up after that point. So we do have a break, and did get a break in a new low, but we just never really could put on anything consistent to the upside. So not a lot of trades after about 10 o'clock. I mean, I see one red one. There's several green ones in here, but just not a lot of entries. So there were several here early on. Most of all this stuff early on was range type trades, but let's zoom in and we'll go through the trades and we'll wrap this day up. Shouldn't take too long today because there's not a lot of trades, but early on we had this range. We had a failed breakout and a trend working down, which could lead to a break on the other side, which it did. So notice we bounced down here. I wouldn't be trying to buy this as long as you can see that trend line's clearly in play. And you technically, this was real tempting, but technically that's only a first entry. When it broke by here, I think it broke lower first too and went up and then came back down. But I still would look at that as a first entry. So I don't think you can take that after just bouncing here. Although there's not any rejection there, and that is right off the key entry point. But it's just a first entry. So I don't think I would take that trade. And you can see we just kind of continued to chop sideways until we finally broke higher. I didn't mark the little range here, but there's a range here. We'll just draw it. And prices break out. And it is a second entry short as well. And that's another reason I kind of like that trade. But you got plenty of room back to the EMA. Prices are probably going to at least come back and test the EMA and then the breakout. Even if they're going to go higher, which they don't, they end up going lower. So you may take that trade. Generally you want to wait on the lower higher, which comes here, which is not a good setup. But finally you get a failure here. Very bearish bar. I like that one. And you actually get a second entry short a few bars later, and I like that one too. Now this does look a little sideways here, but we still don't have a low on this channel. And with that move down, we're probably going to get another measured leg down at a minimum. So just measure that. And that puts you down to a new low. We ended up going much lower than that, but that's a great target right there. And that's close to the close from Friday. And notice we bounce back there. You could, let me back up here. There is a failed second entry long right here, but you don't want to go short right into that support. I don't think that's a great idea. Even though there's a good chance prices are going to break lower, it's just not a high probability trade. And then this comes back, and it's only a first entry. It is a first test, and it does act as resistance. So it's tempting to take that chart, but you'd want to see it tested at least twice, and you don't get another test. It just drops down and then bounces and gets back in there. But notice we start working sideways here. Notice you got this yellow channel coming up. You get a break, move to a new high, and you could also call that a triple test. Very bearish bar, real easy move, and then we bounce, and we're just going up and down. So if you get a good setup, here's a nice bullish bar, but no room to get out. Finally, you get a big bearish bar. It's got a little bit of stem to it, but that looks like a triple test to me at least. You probably could call it a quadruple test, and prices have been going back and forth. So as long as you got room to get out there, which you do, you can take that trade. It's tempting to take this this new low here. Very bullish right at the lows. I didn't mark it because it makes a newer low there, so you might wait on the higher low, which comes here, but that's after a breakout. But I like that one. Prices have been going back and forth even when they broke out and failed, so there's a good chance with this making a higher low, we could go much higher this time, and at the very least we're probably coming back to here. So I like that one. This one I didn't mark it, but you could argue for it to be green probably. I just think you need a higher low here. And technically, this is a little high to call this a higher low, but it does come back and tests the support area, makes a higher low, and gives you a decent signal bar with plenty of room to get out. So I think it's safe to take that trade. I wish the bar was a little stronger. There's a little bit of stem there, but it still closes in its upper within its upper 1/3. So, and this turns out to be a good trade. It doesn't look like it's going to. It looks like it's going to go lower again, or just stay in the range, and it breaks on out. So you probably wouldn't have got a runner on that. I don't think I would probably try to ride that out. I would exit that even if I was leaving my stop a little lower or anything there. So runs on up, you get a close outside new high, and it comes back. And of course, we came up short here on the upper side, so that could lead to a break, which it does. And then notice you run up and you get a first entry and you get a second entry. That looks a little congested for to be trading a failure. So I don't think I would trade that as a failure. But it runs back up, turns down, and it bounces there again. Now you can tell it's a range. And you got a bullish bar with plenty of room back to the highs. And then you get this higher low right here. And I think somebody asked me about this trade. I think this is the trade in the form. The key is, do you have enough room to get out between here and those highs? And I think you have enough. It's really close. I would call that there's exactly six ticks, maybe, there may be 7 ticks there, but there's exactly 6, which is what you need to get out on a buy stop. So unless you got a little better entry there, I'm going to mark that one green, because there's not, you can't bank that it's going to push through. But it does make a higher low after just making a new high. So there's a good chance it's going to push higher, and you're looking for prices to make a new high anyway. So there's clues here that prices could go higher, but it's not a high probability entering right there, unless, and even if you got enough room, it's still not a high probability, because you don't know when it's going to break out and go higher. It could turn down one more time and make a failed break lower and then go higher. So the odds are, I mean, there's clues here that say we're going higher, but the rules tell us it's dangerous to go long right there. So you got to weigh your options there. And of course, we do get the break, a new high. There's actually a little trend channel that runs up here. Get a break and a new high. And that's tempting to go short, but that is awfully sideways. And we do have a tiny body there. I don't think it matters. You get your scalp anyway. You're a long way away from the MA. But picking tops is not smart. It does look like 2 legs to a new high, but I would wait on something a little better than that. Maybe you take that, but generally you want a lower high. Same thing here. You could take it again, but generally you want a lower high. And you do get one, but by that time it's definitely congested. And then finally it drops on through and pulls back. It gives you a failed second entry long. You can clearly see there's a couple of moves down there, and it bounces. Not a great signal bar for a failure. It didn't quite get back to the EMA, but there's a reason to consider it. And the reason it probably didn't get back to the EMA is you got a trend line working down through there, and it couldn't push through it. So maybe you take that one. It's aggressive. And we run on down. No entry here. Runs on down. It looks like we get an overshoot here, but maybe we don't. If you put your measured moves on there, we don't quite get one over. So to me, I believe that's an overshoot. And so that means we're probably going to get a break soon, which we do. Get a close outside here, another one here, and we make a couple of legs down and a new low. So you don't want to go short in that. And I don't see any entries here I really like. You might say, hey, there's a failure, but it's way away from the EMA, and you can see it doesn't go very far before it bounces. And you don't want to be looking for a long yet, not below the EMA. And so by the time we get above it, we're going sideways on a failure. I think it's I don't think you want to go short there either. But then it runs down, and then you get a first entry, second entry, and now you got a triple test. On the second entry, it's not very good. On a failed breakout, it's not very good. And we're not really looking for a second entry here. But notice the new high, and you get a first entry, second entry that fails. So with a second entry, failed second entry, you may take that trade. It's the thing too is it's right at a possible key entry point on this blue channel. So that's something else to look at. It's a little bit off right there, but you probably could draw it where it touches it and it still fits. I drew it at a much higher level, so it's kind of hard to make it fit perfectly. But we do get it confirmed when it comes back here. But anyway, you may take that trade just as a breakout and a failure, regardless of whether you had that downtrend channel, looking at that or not. So, I mean, you probably would have drawn it a little steeper earlier, and it looked like a close outside here anyway. So, but it doesn't come back and confirm it till right here, drawn the way it's drawn. But again, that's one you might take. Then we're just running down. You're too far away from the EMA here. I don't see anything. And then finally, you get a move up with a little overshoot, close outside, and a lower high, and it does confirm that. And look how bearish that is. As long as you got room to get out before those lows, I'd take that trade. If you don't have room, let me zoom in a little more here. Just make sure you got room to get out. That's the reason I marked it. We didn't quite make a new high, but we did have an overshoot here. You can clearly see that little channel working up, an overshoot. And the other thing, it looks like two legs up and then a lower high. Surely, I mean, it's clear you can see those two legs. We do make a little lower low here, but it still looks like two legs back. It's a little sideways, but you can clearly see we're trending higher here. There's a clear channel right there. We get a break or a overshoot, a break, attempted a new high, but the trend line and the EMA stop it. You may say, hey, there's a failure here, but you got to go short right at the very low of the move of the day, basically. That's the low of the day, so it's not a good place to go short. Just the first entry here, so I don't really think you want to go short there. And then we're working sideways. There's a failed breakout here in the second entry. For some reason, I forgot to mark that one. That's a definite at the key entry point right there. And there's no doubt that key entry point's valid now. And you've got the yellow channel and a break, so you'd expect a new low before it. And it may just keep going lower because we haven't reached the midline. But that's another thing. We've gotten over here to this side and touched and confirmed the trend line, but we didn't even get back to the midline here and kind of work sideways. That's a little bit of a hint that, hey, we're losing some momentum to the downside. So, and we had our measured move here too. That was another reason I marked that one green, because of that measured move there. That was the measured move based on the width of the channel. But this trend line's clearly in play, and being right off of it with that bearish of a bar, and it closed below that measured move, and we've already pushed below it a couple of times. So but that's another reason I made that green. Of course, this one's a clear second entry right at the key entry point. Easy move. You don't get a long run or anything. There's another second entry right here, but that's too congested. Not a very good signal bar at all. And then you try to go higher once, twice, it fails. Maybe you take that one, but you probably want to wait on this lower high. You don't have much room in the EMA. The reason I like that one is because it's a almost exact repeat pattern right here, and I want to say we saw that somewhere else too. Somewhere over here, but you definitely got it there, and that is an exact repeat pattern there, pretty much of this. Notice you try to go higher once, twice, and it fails. Try to go higher once, twice, it fails. Again, I'd wait on that lower high, although there's reasons to take that one if you got enough room to get out before that EMA, because it's getting a little flat there, and we've already been above it once. We actually got above it a little bit a couple of times before too. First time, if you've been in a strong downtrend and maybe the first time you break above the EMA, if you still get a good setup, you pretty much have to take it. But once you start to get above it a few times, especially this far above it, twice in a row, you have to start to worry about it. And you can see we still went lower, but it wasn't long before we were rallying. And really, that's the first break of the blue channel, and we don't have it. We're probably going to make a new low because that's a really strong downtrend. So we're going to make a new low there. The key is the timing. So with the trap and then a lower high, you're probably going to get what you need there. It is getting late in the day though. There's another second entry here Notice that new low first. Technically, the second entry triggers here, but you could still look at that as 2 legs back at a different level. But I wouldn't take that trade. Not right there, right at the 230 almost mark. It's a little late in the day, and it looked like it would have worked, but it's just not a very good setup. And technically, your second entry was right here on this chart. So anyway, that's how I saw it today. It was really such a nice move. Not a lot of great trades in there. Again, if you see it properly, there's a couple in here that you probably would take. I marked them green. They're real close. You need to be a little more experienced probably to find that channel early on. Of course, it wouldn't be that hard to find it by the time it gets down to here. But we are going a little sideways there too. So anyway, that's what I see today. Not a lot of trades. At least there were. I mean, remember, all you need is 1 or 2 good trades a day to make a good living at this. You don't want to take more trades. You want to take 1 or 2 good trades, 3 at the most maybe. If you can find 1 or 2 every day, you can make a great living at this. And so just remind yourself, if you're looking for trades, you're doing the wrong thing. You need to be looking to make money. So ask yourself, when you go to take a trade, am I just trying to take a trade, or do I really think I'm going to make money on this trade? Is this a high probability entry, or does it just look okay, but I'm not 100% sure? People ask me that in the forum, what do you think about this trade? Well, if you have to ask me, it's probably not a good idea to take it because you're not 100% sure. If you're not 100% sure on a trade and you take it, you're gambling. So don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. I'm not trying to, say anything negative about your thinking or your trading. I'm trying to get you to think with the right attitude. And the right attitude is that if you're not 100% sure that trade's going to work, then you probably shouldn't take it. Wait till you see one that you feel that you're 99.999% sure this trade's going to work. And if it doesn't, then your chart reading skills probably aren't there yet. But you'll get to the point where there'll be some days where they'll just be super simple, and there'll be second entries all over the place with the trend at the key entry points, and they're super simple. And then you get other days like today where all the trades that were really good were range type trades, but they were very consistent, so it made it easier. We did get these late afternoon second entries, a couple of them, but for the most part, this was not the easiest day. I mean, we had this huge move down and we didn't really get any entries on it. It's unfortunate, but it happens like that. Now tomorrow we may get a move that strong, and you might get half a dozen entries all the way down or more. So take what the market will give you, and don't try to force a trade, because that's what messes people up. They're trying to take trades and they're not thinking about this like, hey, I'm trying to make money. I'm not trying to take a trade. I'm trying to make money. And when you get to that mentality, it really can change your trading, but you got to get yourself there. And it's a mental game. 90% of this, I won't say 90%, but once you learn the strategy and you know price movements, and you know how to find the trends and the channels, and you understand how prices move, which is completely against common sense, which was why this is so hard. Once you got that part, the rest of it's the mental part. So you just, you have to keep working on that mental aspect. And because you got this little guy sitting on each side of the shoulder, and one of them's the good guy that says, hey, follow the rules, only take the best trades. And the other little guy's over there saying, hey, this trade's going to work. It's not perfect, but you know it's going to work. Just go ahead and take it. And you know what happens when you listen to that little voice? He's wrong. He's lying to you. And I know that's a little, if some of you are probably laughing at that example, but that's exactly what happens. And I know if you've traded any amount of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And as silly as it seems and sounds, it's the truth. This little voice will talk you out of perfectly good trades and into the worst trades you can imagine. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com.